Both the woman and male driver ran into a daycare and attempted to barricade themselves inside the daycare.
They lie.
America, we just witnessed the most pathetic display of liberal privilege that we've ever seen. ICE agents arrested an illegal immigrant who fled into a daycare to avoid deportation, and now privileged white liberals, most of them, are holding candlelight vigils for a criminal who was literally using their children as human shields. But here's what's really sick. These people are calling this the most traumatic thing that they've ever experienced. If watching somebody get arrested for breaking the law is the worst thing that you've ever seen, you have lived the most sheltered, privileged life imaginable.
It's a scene that I don't think any of us have ever witnessed before and will ever forget.
Horrifying. This is a nightmare. This is a nightmare. This is surreal.
What is up, guys? Tyson De La Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. The legacy media is trying to spin this as ICE terrorizing children. But the truth is, an illegal immigrant criminal fled into a school to avoid consequences for breaking our laws. And liberals are more upset about law enforcement than they are about having a criminal watching their kids. Let me break down what legacy media is telling you versus what actually happened. According to CBS, CNN, and the rest of the propaganda machine, ICE agents targeted a daycare and terrorized children by arresting an innocent teacher.
Joe and Erica, parents tell me they're horrified, traumatized, and struggling to find the right words to explain to their kids what happened here this morning.
But here's what really happened. According to the official ICE statement, officers attempted to conduct a targeted traffic stop of a female illegal alien from Colombia. When they tried to pull her over with sirens and emergency lights, the male driver refused to stop. They pursued the vehicle until the suspect sped into a shopping plaza, abandoned the car, ran into a daycare where they attempted to barricade themselves inside. This wasn't ICE targeting a daycare. This was a criminal fleeing into a school and recklessly endangering children to avoid arrest. The illegal was arrested in Vista Blue, not a classroom, and she lied about her identity when caught.
Today I thought it was going to be like any other, but upon pulling up, you just see chaos.
Drop off at daycare was anything but routine for a dad like Adam Gonzalez.
You know, a lot of things go through your head before you go to, oh my God, ICE is here to take someone away.
The vehicle was registered in her name, but she claims she didn't know the man driving the car and just picked him up from a bus stop. Does that sound believable to anyone with half a brain? Now let me tell you about these traumatized parents who are acting like they witnessed a war crime. Listen to what these sheltered, privileged liberals are saying about watching somebody get arrested.
The children were crying, the parents were crying. It's a scene that I don't think any of us have ever witnessed before and will ever forget.
Really? This is the most traumatic thing you've ever experienced? Watching law enforcement arrest somebody who broke the law?
Horrifying. This is a nightmare. This is a nightmare. This is surreal. The fact that the federal government is coming after our daycare workers. Our daycare workers?
Nobody's being harmed here. The only people being harmed here is the community, our neighborhood. That is who is being terrorized here right now.
Listen to this dramatic nonsense. This is horrifying. This is a nightmare. This is surreal. You know what's a real nightmare? Having your child killed by an illegal alien driver. You know what's truly horrifying? Having your daughter taken by an illegal alien who was released by sanctuary city policies. But these privileged liberals think watching somebody get arrested is the worst thing that ever happened to them. That tells you everything you need to know about how sheltered and out of touch these people are. Now let me tell you about this quote-unquote innocent teacher that these liberals are holding candlelight vigils for. According to DHS, this woman crossed the U.S.-Mexico border illegally in 2023 and was issued a work permit based on a pending asylum application.
This is not the worst of the worst. These are teachers. These are people who care. These are people who are parts of our community.
This is not the worst of the worst. These are teachers. These are people who care.
Really? People who care don't flee from police and barricade themselves in schools with children present. People who care don't use kids as human shields to avoid consequences for breaking the law. This woman had every opportunity to handle her immigration case properly. Instead, she chose to run from law enforcement and endanger children. But these delusional parents think that she's some kind of hero because she worked at their precious daycare.
We have new reaction after a teacher from a Northside daycare was pulled from the building by federal agents. Hundreds of residents turned out tonight to speak out against it.
WGN's Emmy Victor was at the meeting and joins us now with more. Emmy.
Well, Dana, things are a lot quieter now than they were about an hour or two ago. Earlier tonight, this area was packed with people who came out for a meeting centered around keeping ICE out of schools.
Look at this community response. They're treating this criminal like she's some kind of martyr. They're more concerned about protecting somebody who broke our laws than they are about the fact that they had an illegal alien watching their kids. Here's where the story gets absolutely insane. These liberals are so backwards in their thinking that they're holding candlelight vigils for somebody who committed multiple crimes and endangered their own children.
I don't know how you tell a child that a teacher that they love was taken away. But all I know is if you have a kid, hug them.
Listen to this parent. I don't know how to tell a child a teacher they love was taken away. Here's a crazy idea. Tell them the truth. Tell them that the teacher broke the law by entering our country illegally, then broke more laws by fleeing police and using their school as a hideout. But these people can't handle the truth because it conflicts with their delusional worldview where illegal aliens are always criminals and law enforcement is always wrong.
Department of Homeland Security issuing their response after agents arrested a teacher early this morning inside a daycare center. Parents and community activists demanding her immediate release.
They're calling this woman a daycare teacher like she's some kind of saint, but she's literally a criminal who was in our country illegally and fled from law enforcement. Maybe it's time for these parents to switch schools and find one that actually vets their employees. What really exposes these people's privilege is their complete inability to understand why law enforcement exists. They live in such a bubble that they think ICE agents are the bad guys for doing their jobs.
Some of the most chilling video footage I have ever seen, certainly in my time in office.
The alderman says this is some of the most chilling video footage he's ever seen. Really? A routine arrest is the most chilling thing that you ever witnessed? You've never seen footage of cartel violence, gang shootings, terrorist attacks, child trafficking, or even a Rambo movie? This is what happens when you live in a privileged bubble where the worst thing that you can imagine is law enforcement doing their job. In my opinion, these people have no concept of real violence, real trauma, or real danger.
The fact that the federal government is coming after our daycare workers, our daycare workers?
No, the federal government is enforcing immigration law against people who broke it. But these privileged liberals can't tell the difference between law enforcement and prosecution because they never experienced real oppression. Let me tell you who the real victims are in this story, because it's not illegal aliens who got arrested. It's not the traumatized white liberals holding candlelight vigils. The real victims are American citizens who follow the law, pay their taxes, and expect their government to enforce immigration policy. The real victims are legal immigrants who went through the proper process and are watching criminals get sympathy for breaking the rules that they followed.
Nobody's being harmed here. The only people being harmed here is the community, our neighborhood.
This parent says nobody's being harmed here. But what about the harm of the rule of law? What about the harm to legal immigrants who are undercut by people who cheat the system? What about the harm to American workers who compete with illegal labor? These privileged liberals only care about harm when it affects people they've decided to sympathize with. They don't care about the broader harm that illegal immigration causes to American communities.
Hands off Chicago! Hands off Chicago!
A large crowd formed this evening in Chicago's North Center neighborhood over an immigration raid at a daycare.
We had masked ICE agents following a daycare educator into the daycare, where there were parents, there were children.
And look at this community rallying around somebody who broke multiple laws. They're treating her like she's Rosa Parks instead of somebody who fled from police and endangered children. The moral confusion is absolutely staggering here. Here's what these parents should be asking themselves. If this daycare was employing somebody who was in the country illegally, what other corners are they cutting? What other laws are they ignoring? Maybe it's time to find a school that actually follows law and properly vets their employees. But instead of taking responsibility for their poor choices in childcare, they're blaming ICE for doing their job. They're more upset about law enforcement than they are about the fact that they trusted their children to somebody who was breaking federal law. This is the backwards thinking that is destroying our country. We have people who are more concerned about protecting criminals than protecting their own children. They're holding candlelight vigils for lawbreakers while demonizing the agents who keep our communities safe. America, this story perfectly exposes the privilege and moral confusion of liberals who have never experienced real trauma or real danger. If watching somebody get arrested for breaking the law is the most traumatic thing you've ever seen, you've lived an incredibly sheltered life. These people are holding candlelight vigils for a criminal who fled from police and used their children's school as a hideout. They're calling law enforcement officers the bad guys while defending someone who broke multiple laws and endangered kids. The woman who got arrested wasn't an innocent victim. She was an illegal alien who fled from a traffic stop and barricaded herself in a daycare. She lied about her identity when she got caught and claimed she didn't know the person driving her own car. But these privileged parents are so disconnected from reality that they think she's a hero and ICE agents are terrorists. They live in such a bubble that they can't distinguish between law enforcement and oppression. Just maybe, instead of holding candlelight vigils for criminals, these parents should be asking why their daycare was employing someone who was in the country illegally. Maybe they should be grateful that law enforcement removed somebody for breaking federal law from their child's school. But that would require them to live in the real world instead of their privileged fantasy where criminals are always victims and law enforcement is always wrong. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.